On this Friday morning, the last time that I'm with you this week, until the week before Christmas, of course. And this week, we have been looking at elements of the Christmas story that are very seldom discussed, very seldom even acknowledged. And this morning, I want us to look at another element that is not often spoken of, and that is the role played by the man known as King Herod, sometimes called Herod the Great, although one commentator says the only reason he was great was because of the comparison with the rest of his family. But Herod the Great plays a fairly significant role in the Christmas story. Not an heroic role by any means, but Herod the Great was known because of two significant factors during his life. The first is that he was a builder of great projects. So, for example, he built the port at Caesarea, which linked Judea with Rome. He was a vassal king, placed there by Rome to be their spokesperson on the ground. He also rebuilt the city of Samaria. And of course, he's probably most well known for the building project of the temple. When we've been looking at Haggai over the past couple of weeks on Sunday mornings, the temple, having been destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC, was rebuilt under the governor Zerubbabel, and that was the temple which still stood during Herod's time, and he improved it dramatically. He also extended it and extended his own palace, which was adjacent to the temple. So he was known as a significant builder. Oh, one of the other things that he did was he also built the fortress of Masada, and there's a lot of intrigue around the fortress of Masada in the Judean desert. But not only was Herod known for his building projects, he was also known for his cruelty. And he obviously was a very insecure king on the throne, because every time there was a possible threat, he killed off the ones who he thought were threatening him, including members of his own family and his wife, in fact. And that might explain something of the willingness to be cruel enough to kill off baby boys of under 2 years of age. Yesterday, when we looked at the account of the Magi, we see that Herod actually asked them when it was that the star first appeared. And they must have told him that it was a little less than 2 years ago that it had first appeared, that they'd become aware of the fact that this was the pronouncement of a significant birth. As a result of that, of course, they were looking for one, they said, who was to be king of the Jews. And as a result, Herod felt very threatened, and he chose to kill off all the baby boys in the Bethlehem area under 2 years of age. That is such an awful thing to do. I cannot begin to imagine what that must have been like for the people of Bethlehem. But we know well, of course, that Mary, Joseph, and Jesus escaped down to Egypt. And then Herod died in what, according to our calendar, historians have been able to calculate it backwards in our calendar, and it would be he died in 4 BC, which of course means that when they calculated the first calendar that was meant to be from Jesus' birth, they actually got it wrong. And these days, scholars are very sure that Jesus was born probably between 6 and 7 BC, by our calendar anyway. But what are we to learn about this from this element of Herod the Great, trying to intervene, trying to kill off Jesus? Well, one of the things that I'm always reminded of when I think about this incident, this element in our Christmas story, is Psalm 2. Let me read it to you. It's worth reading in this context. Why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers gather together against the Lord and against his anointed one. And many will see those comments as being prophetic of Herod's stand against the Lord's anointed one, born during Herod's reign. Let us break their chains, they say, and throw off their fetters. The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. Then he rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them with his wrath, saying, I have installed my king on Zion, my holy hill. And the thing that comes to mind is that sometimes we're so overly concerned about decisions that secular rulers are making, and very often they are cruel beyond measure, even in our day and age. But particularly here in South Africa, it's easy to be distressed by decisions that we feel the authorities are making. But you know what? They are never going to overthrow God's purposes for God's church, for God's people here in this country. And I'm quite surprised at how so many believers get themselves into such a tiz over decisions that our rulers are making. Of course we need to be concerned about it, or aware of it at least. And of course we need to take action against decisions that we feel to be wrong. But we need to also step back and acknowledge that by faith, the Lord says that he has not lost control. And when the rulers plot and do all that they can, the Lord scoffs at them. He laughs at them, thinking that they can overcome God's purposes for his people. And nevertheless, the Apostle Paul writes to Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 2, and in verse 2, he encourages Timothy, and we are encouraged to pray for kings and all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. And so this morning, I just want to encourage you to not get distressed about some of the decisions that seem to be being made by our political authorities. But nevertheless, we are to pray for them, to pray for our president, to pray for those who are making these decisions. And in this turbulent time, it really is worth praying for our leaders. So as you take time out this morning, won't you make that a focus of your prayer time, to pray for our leaders, but recognizing that they will not overcome God's purposes for his people in this country. They don't have that authority. I'll be with you again in the week before Christmas. God bless you today.